Hi, welcome to the Exegetical Tasks video number 5. In this video, we're going to be going over Task 5 from your Exegetical Tasks handout. Be sure you turn to that page in your handout and uh, read through that section, make notes as we go through the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to be switching to PowerPoint mode at this time, and then we'll talk through the task and the examples. The focus of this task is a lot like task number 2, except this time, instead of dealing with the historical context of the book of Galatians, you're going to be dealing with the historical context of your passage. All right, so that'll be a little different. Step 5 is to determine the historical context. The goal is to reconstruct the condition of the original audience as the first to hear the passage of the letter read to determine the specific problems it attempts to address. So what we're going to do, reconstruct what must have been true for the recipients based on internal evidence. Now earlier you did this with the whole book using the key phrases that you boiled each paragraph down to. This time you're going to use the text of your paragraph in all of its phrases to be able to reconstruct this. Not every phrase is going to be beneficial to this process. This is similar to step 2, but focused on your paragraph. Read your paragraph imagining what problem the readers have that the author must be addressing. For each clause, assume it has the purpose of addressing a problem that the Galatians must have had. Write down a statement of what that problem must have been. This is also backwards inferencing. The author does something, he must be doing it because X. You need to produce the X. Now, to be certain, this step has a little bit of guesswork in it, and you're going to be comparing this thing with other evidence, and eventually you can let go of the things you can't find evidence for. But you want to do this internal evidence because this is coming from the book as opposed to coming from scientific research. So you're going to be combining both of these in your statement. Write down a statement of each problem. Construct a paragraph describing all of the problematic statements. This describes the general problem or the situation of its readers. It's a plausible problem or general situation of its readers. This stem seems to be imaginative at first, or this task seems to be imaginative at first. The idea is to develop what must be going on that the author had to say that. In other words, people don't say things without a reason. That's the underlying assumption behind this method. If you assume that people speak without any reason or they just say random things, then this step has no meaning. And so if Paul is saying something, there must be a reason. We may not identify the correct or the full reason that some things are included and some things are left out. That takes a lifetime of research sometimes to find out. But we can do backwards inferencing, and then we can look for confirmation from other sources and see which ones of those are plausible. Subjectivity does creep into the method here. It's not entirely objective, because what one person backwards inferences might be different from what another person does. It's okay. You're going to be using more objective things to filter them later. And this is the brainstorming phase, if you want to think about it like that. And you often have to do some brainstorming to figure out which path you're going to go down. Eventually, the ones that don't fit your overall understanding will be dropped as conjectures. So you don't need to worry about doing too many subjective things here. Many of your observations at this stage, though, will be useful to understand the actual situation. Think of this as necessary brainstorming before reaching an ultimate decision. Let's look at the example from 1 Thessalonians 2 through 10. 1 Thessalonians 1, 2 through 10. Thank God in our prayers for you. Maybe they're insecure about their value to God. If Paul is thanking God in his prayers for the Galatians and telling them this, maybe they need to know this because they're insecure. So you can backwards inference that. All right? Consistently remember your faith, hope, and love. Maybe they have a lack of confidence that they have these qualities. Chosen you. Maybe they're unsure they've been chosen. Gospel in word and in power and conviction. Maybe they're unclear about the power behind the gospel. Become imitators of Paul in welcoming the message. They're unsure of the quality or the sufficiency of their initial response to the gospel. Become a model, or became a model. and I just put the word same. They're probably insecure that or uncertain of their sufficiency of this. But Paul is saying, you became imitators, you became a model. Maybe they need to know that. And we can also suppose he's just congratulating them on a job well done that they're well aware that they've done. That's an option here, but there's less to say about that option. So developing this as backwards inferencing gives us more to think about. And sometimes if you've got 3 or 4 things that you can backwards inference off of a phrase, put them all down. And then we can eliminate them later if they don't seem to fit what we learn. Your faith is known everywhere. Maybe they don't know they have this great impact on others around them. All right, they report that you serve the living God. Maybe they're uncertain of the value of their service or the identity of who they serve. I doubt that one, but it's a possibility when someone says they report you serve the living God. Maybe they just don't know that others are reporting about them. That's another option. Wait for his son. Maybe they're anxious for him to return soon, and he needs to tell them to wait. These are ways to do some backwards inferencing. And there's a lot that's been said about Thessalonian church and the second coming. The differences between First and Thessalonians are well known, have long been debated as possibly the Thessalonians misunderstanding something about the second coming. So that's possibly an issue here that Paul's dealing with, and it's a legitimate one to ponder. All right, let's take a look at the example, the next example. This is the write-up part of the example. What Paul says in this paragraph suggests, and that's a nice word to use when you're dealing with stuff that you've backwards inferenced off of a text. He suggests. You don't want to say that this is certain or anything like that. What Paul says in this paragraph suggests that he believes the Thessalonians are suffering not only from physical and social persecution in their setting, but also from low self-esteem before God. Perhaps they think their suffering is an indication that neither God nor Paul nor other believers regard them highly, when the exact opposite is true. Because of their anxious circumstances, they're also concerned about how soon Christ will return, and maybe even that he has returned and not exalted them. They should see their insecurities in the light of Paul's confident prayers and his firm assurance of God's value for them. Now, we might have overstated some things about the Thessalonian situation, but as we dig around and probe the edges of our backwards inferencing and probe the edges of the text, we can find some validation for some of these, and then also maybe find some things that are contradictory to some of these, and we just cross them out. We can assume that we have at least material we can work with here. That's why we do this step. All right, we're going to stop the video right here. Let me ask God's blessing on you as you do this assignment. This can be challenging at times because you do have to do some brainstorming, you do have to do some backwards inferencing, and you're not certain of what you backwards inferenced. The key here is to use brainstorming and come up with as many things as possibly you can, because then you have more things to rule out or affirm as you go on to the next steps. Thanks, and God bless you.